See ya.
What? See me when? Where are you going?
I'm going to Rennie's. I told you that.
I told you we're working in the yard today. You remember that?
Oh, was that today? I've just been so busy lately that I can't keep things straight. And now the guys are counting on me.
Well, we're counting on you too, Billy. Look, Bill, we're very busy too, but we have responsibilities.
I know, Mom. But I told Meg I'd be there, and she's going to be really bummed if I don't show up. I'm going to be late.
No, you're not going to be late because you're not going anywhere. No, what Meg? Who is Meg? Do I know her?
No, you don't. I met her at church, okay? What do you think, she's a hooker or something?
I am not going to play this game with you. I don't think you should be running around with a girl we haven't even met yet, and I don't think you should be fooling around when we have obligations here at home. Now, I want you to turn around, put on some clothes that you can work in, and that's the end of the discussion.
No, I don't care. I'm going. I have obligations to my friends, and I'm going. End of discussion.
William!
Kind of makes you long for the days when the excitement on Saturday mornings was from cartoons, doesn't it? Does anybody really win a confrontation like that? I've learned a useful idea. It's called Marty's Law, and it goes like this. Behind every story, there's a story. It's useful for parents because it raises an important question. How can two people who really love each other act as if they really hated each other? What was going through your mind while you watched that vignette?
I felt a lot of hurt. I was really hurting for both Bill and his mom. So much going on inside of both of them that probably neither of them are fully aware of.
Project yourself a little bit. What do you think is going on in her mind and in his?
Well, both of them, I think in this way, parents and kids are alike. Both of them have deep personal needs. You know, it's obvious that mom feels like she's losing control of this son and has a lot of personal investment, a lot at stake. Maybe her whole worth as a woman is riding on how this son turns out. Maybe this woman has never really felt appreciated in almost any relationship. And this is the one relationship while this boy's been young that she's felt appreciated. Now she's losing that. Perhaps she's feeling like somehow she has to prove that she really is valuable as a person by how good she can make her son turn out. And maybe she's got a lot of important people that are kind of watching that. Maybe her own mom, maybe the church community. Maybe she's enjoyed a little bit of prestige in the community as a Bible study leader. And now her own son is starting to turn on her, and she's going to lose what little acceptance she's felt. You know, there's all kinds of things going on inside of her. And she's finding a way to try to accomplish those things, and it's not working. For him, that's obvious that his friends are really important to him right now. Maybe this is a kid that, until recently, just hasn't felt accepted. He's finally found a way to feel really accepted by his peers. But he has to conform. He has to come through for them. And he knows they're fickle. He knows that social suicide might be committed by not even showing up that day. And, you know, those relationships are that fragile. And this kid perhaps is starving. We don't see the dad in this picture. Maybe dad's not even around. Maybe this kid's starving for some kind of involvement in his life. And this is the one way he's found that it works, through his peers. And mom just seems to be a block to all of that. I mean, he's not going to feel very important staying home working in the yard. But if he could be with his friends and mean something to them, then he'll have that desire fulfilled. And so he's developed a strategy, too. Both of these folks not only have a deep personal need, but they also have well-developed strategies for how they're going to get those needs met. Mom's adopted the strategy of being a policewoman. And she's decided that if she can just know everything about this kid and control where he goes and what he does, that somehow she can maybe get those deep personal needs of her own met. And, of course, the kid has decided that being the compliant little kid like he possibly was growing up just isn't going to work anymore. He's going to have to take things into his own hands and start shattering the expectations of those around him and get free. Get free so that he can get the acceptance from his peers that he wants. Both of them are in a lot of pain because their strategies, well, they're not getting the cooperation that they need from each other to make those strategies really work well. So they're feeling a great deal of pain, too.
where do they come with, where do these strategies come from? Are these in a book someplace? Have they thought these out? Trial and error? What?
Trial and error to a large degree. Some of it's imitation. Some of it's learning from the people around them. Usually they're hammered out in childhood and adolescence, and they're learned and refined and developed so that by the time they move into adulthood, they're pretty deeply held, pretty stubbornly committed to. And as a result, it's hard to get people to give these strategies up, to turn them around. Very often they're not even aware that the way they react to other people, whether it's to their children or to their parents, takes on a pattern. There's a pattern to it. Underneath it, there's a strategy or a well-thought-out plan with certain goals in mind. If I can just convince my mom that she can't expect anything more from me, and she gives up on me, then I'll finally have the power to get what I need. I'll finally have the freedom. And so he's got a well-developed strategy or plan to get everybody to give up on him. Let everybody just drop their expectations, and finally he can do what he wants to do. Maybe the mom, learn this strategy of keeping control of everything, keeping tabs on everything, kind of being the boss of the universe, so to speak, at least her own little universe. Maybe she learned that growing up, and it worked real well for her going through high school and college. But now with an adolescent, there's just no way that strategy is going to work. It's going to backfire. As these strategies backfire, it leaves them confused, leaves them hurting, frustrated, mad at each other, not sure where to turn.
If a parent and a child are both attempting to develop strategies to meet and satisfy underlying needs, what else are they doing that's similar? How are parents and children alike?
Well, one thing is that when their strategies begin to fail, and really for kids, strategies begin to fail during adolescence, because you just can't use what you learned during childhood to make your life work in an adult world, at least a more adult-like world. And so strategies begin to break down for kids during adolescence, and they scramble, kind of like a quarterback caught behind the line. The play breaks down, and he's going to be sacked if he doesn't come up with something. And so that's what kids are doing. They're trying to make something work. Parents very often can make their strategies work until they have adolescent children in their home. And then all of a sudden, they can't control this kid like they controlled a smaller kid. And you know what parents and kids tend to naturally do when their strategies begin to fail? They don't tend to naturally say, oh, this is silly. Here we are trying to get our own deepest needs met on our own. We ought to just give this up, quit trying to make it happen on our own. We need to bring our deepest needs and somehow in our relationship with Christ, find a way for Him to meet those deepest needs. They don't tend to do that. Instead, they tend to say to themselves, I can make this strategy work if I just try harder. And so they intensify their strategy, they exaggerate it. And if the kid was super compliant, he'll become even more compliant. If the parent was super controlling, they'll become even more controlling until at last they come to the conclusion that that won't work, and then something breaks. And they usually end up resorting to something that's very uncharacteristic and almost desperate, and very often can result in disasters.
Here's a woman who's been a Christian for a long time. Here's a boy who's grown up in a Christian household, but they are ignoring the obvious answer. Mm-hmm. Continue to pursue their own strategies, trying to get their own needs met. Why?
We read in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 6, that the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters. And I think what the writer of Proverbs means when he says that is that the purposes that we're pursuing, the directions we're heading with our behavior, are not obvious to us. They're not apparent most of the time. It's kind of cloudy. Most people are confused about what direction they're heading or why they do the things they do. And rather than enter that confusion and do some reflective work in their own life and have to look at some things that may be very troubling, normally what they do is they just operate on automatic. They just react to whatever happens in the same old manner. Sometimes they intensify it, sometimes they don't. And rather than stopping and saying, things aren't working. I feel like I hate my kid on the inside. My kid is so angry at me. What is going on?
As an advocate for adolescents, give me as a parent something to understand or some encouragement to look at my child and see him or her in the light of such a difficult time.
I would encourage you to put on biblical eyeglasses. In Proverbs chapter 19, one of the things that we read about is that kids have plans in their heart. They have strategies. And they also have deep needs for love. And as you look through those two lenses, so to speak, through the lens of deep desires that our kids have to be loved, and through the lens of wrong strategies that they have made up to get their own needs met, then you begin to see kids in more of a dynamic perspective. You get to see beneath the waterline, in a sense, what's going on in their lives. So I'd encourage parents to put on biblical eyeglasses and begin to look beyond the kids' behavior to what's going on in their heart.
Judy and Tina occupied the same household, mother and daughter, but it seemed like they lived worlds apart. It only seemed that way. It took time and some real disappointment to see it, but it turns out they've always had more in common than they thought.
I feel differently today than I probably felt when they were going through their younger adolescent years. I think back then I wanted from them to be excited and popular and have fun in all they were doing and all of that kind of stuff. Those were good things that happened to me in my high school and junior high years, so I wanted that from them, to see that, so that I could be a parent of these wonderful kids. Today, I think that the most important thing to me is, and I really praise God that I'm getting it, is their love and respect. Somehow, my kids have, they're my friend, and that's what I want most of all, is for them to be my friend, so that they can feel free to come to me when they are going through difficult times, because we all do. And if they're hurting or they're scared or they get in a bind, I want them to know that they can come to me, and I'm not going to be pointing the finger, and I'm not going to condemn and judge. That it's just okay. We all make mistakes, and we can find solutions for it, you know.
When I look back now, the thing that I wanted most from my parents was I wanted my mom's attention. My mom was married to a man at one point when I was younger, in kindergarten and first grade, and this man demanded all of her attention. And he was the type of man who got abusive when she gave us attention. He felt that, my opinion was that he felt that we weren't his children and that we were just there. So he caused a lot of problems when my mom tried to give us love. And so she stopped doing it because she didn't want him to hurt her or to hurt us.
I went through times where I didn't feel close, and I couldn't understand why they wouldn't come to me, you know, like what I just talked about that I have today. And I imagine that while we were going through those times, in my sickness or in my unhealthiness, back to the demanding, you know, and of course they're not going to come to me if I'm expecting them to be something certain, some certain person. I wasn't allowing them to be them, and then they weren't coming to me, and the closeness was gone, and I'm going, what have I done wrong, you know?
I think that parents tried to hide their adolescence because they want their children to think that they're perfect. Not exactly that they have in mind that they want to be titled as perfect, but they want their children to view them as, I know what's right because I have all the answers. But how did they get the answers if they hadn't gone through it? Is what I always thought as a child. I think that parents need to be more honest with their kids, too. Kids need to be more honest with their parents. But I don't think very often that children walk up to their parents and say, hey, Mom, let's sit down and talk, for the very first time. And I think it's very hard for kids to do that because in the society today, the attitude is that children are knowing so much at such a young age. They're getting the attitude that they don't need their parents.
A couple of years ago, I spent a great deal of time with a high school student named Ryan. Ryan was a bright kid, had a lot to offer, but he was taking shortcuts. He was spending so little time at school that there was a real question about whether or not he would graduate. He cheated on the job, stole money from the till. He was always in hot water at home. And as his story began to emerge, I realized that this was not just a kid looking for a good time, not just a kid trying to find an easy way. So one afternoon, Ryan and his father and I took off, and we just told stories. It turned out that in Ryan's life there had been 3 earth-shaking experiences when he was 5 years old. One of his grandparents had died, his parents had divorced, and his puppy died. Using a 5-year-old's logic, he connected all 3 of those. These were things or people he loved, and they went away. Now, by the time he was 17, that had become a sort of unexamined assumption about the way relationships work. And as a result, Ryan was afraid to give his love to anybody that he really cared about. He was unattached with his parents. He was unattached with his friends. As Ryan told his story, I watched his father's body language change from real rigidity to complete relaxation and even tears. And when Ryan took a breath, his dad sort of intervened with, I think I know what you're talking about, son. At least that's what happened to me. You would have no way of knowing this, but when I was a kid, your grandfather died. And I blamed myself. And it's made it very difficult for my whole life to give myself in relationships with the people I love. It's why I divorced your mother, or rather why she divorced me. And then Ryan stepped in. He said, "You never told me that." And his dad said, "There are a lot of things I never told you." And understanding began at that point. It was an understanding not from the point of view of control for either of them, but from shared weakness. And the things that occurred in the weeks that followed began to heal their relationship. The father learned that behind every story there's a story. And the son learned that he had a great deal more in common with his father than he ever had any idea.